In this episode of Biblical Unlocks, we will go through a chapter of the Bible and make it make sense in your life today. Studies routinely show that reading your Bible regularly significantly lowers symptoms of depression, anxiety, and anger, whilst also increasing forgiveness, compassion, and a sense of purpose. So if you enjoy episodes like this, please consider following and rating the show. It's free, helps me out a lot, and you can always change your mind later. Enjoy the show. Alright, Genesis chapter 31. Let's go through it and understand the deep biblical unlocks present within it. So, very important chapter in the Bible. Jacob is going to finally break free from Laban. You remember Laban? Laban was the brother of Rachel. Okay, now Jacob's going to finally break free, and this is going to be after years of labor, deceit, fertility contests, so much that has happened. And now he's going to go back to the land of his fathers. Very good chapter in the Bible. Verses 1 to 3, okay? I'm going to ask you a question. Why does God tell Jacob to go back now? And what does "I am with you" mean in the context of his prolonged hardship? Okay, verses 1 to 3. Now Jacob heard that the sons of Laban were saying, "Jacob has taken all that was our father's. He has gained all his wealth from what belonged to our father." And Jacob saw that Laban did not regard him as favorably as he did before. Then the Lord said to Jacob, "Return to the land of your ancestors and to your kindred, and I will be with you." Okay, verses 1 to 3. So God speaks to Jacob in response to his cry, right? And he commands return. He says, "Return to the land of your fathers, I will be with you." And this is a very interesting biblical cross-reference to Genesis chapter 28, verse 15. So if we read Genesis chapter 28, verse 15, what do we read? We read the following. "Know that I am with you, and will keep you wherever you go, and will bring you back to this land, for I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised with you." So again, this is reframing that Jacob's flight is obedience under God. Okay, next let's read verses 4 to 16. So Jacob, hang on. Before I read that, I have a little question for you. How does Jacob narrate Laban's treatment to his wives and children? And what does this reveal about persuasion, memory, and mutual responsibility? These three things. Okay, let's read. So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah out into the field where his flock was, and said to them, "I see that your father does not regard me as favorably as he did before, but the God of my father has been with me. You know that I have served your father well with all my strength, yet your father has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. But God did not permit him to harm me. If he said, 'The speckled shall be your wages,' then all the flock bore speckled. And if he said, 'The striped shall be your wages,' then all the flock bore striped. Thus God has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. During the mating of the flock, I once had a dream in which I looked up and saw that the male goats that leaped upon the flock were striped, speckled, and mottled. Then the angel of the Lord said to me in a dream, 'Jacob,' and I said, 'Here I am.' And he said, 'Look up and see that all the goats that leap onto the flock are striped, speckled, and mottled, for I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and made a vow to me. Now leave this land at once and return to the land of your birth.' Then Rachel and Leah answered him, 'Is there any portion or inheritance left to us in our father's house? Are we not regarded by him as foreigners? For he has sold us, and he has been using up the money given for us. All the property that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and to our children. Now then, do whatever God said to you.' So Jacob arose and set his children and his wives on his camels, and he drove away all of his livestock, all the property that he had gained, the livestock in his possession that he had acquired in Padan Aram, to go to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan." Okay, so verses 4 to 16, what do we read? Jacob is gathering his wives, his children, his flock, and he explains all of his grievances. Laban changed his wages repeatedly. He used deceit when he he would say, oh, you have to attend to the flock of all the striped goats, only the striped goats, so it'll be less. But then he goes and then he sees all of the goats are striped and whatnot. And Leah and Rachel actually validate his words. He's saying his father, Laban, has partiality. So Jacob frames the escape as necessary for both justice and so that they can all leave this injustice that they're experiencing. So the wives actually side with him because they actually prefer their father's household less than their life with Jacob. Interesting. So what's important here? It shows that Jacob actually persuades his wives by rehearsing the facts and appealing to their shared experiences together. Okay, cool. Let's read verses 17 to 24. So Jacob arose and set his children and his wives on camels, and he drove away all his livestock, all the property that he had gained, the livestock in his possession that he had acquired in Padan Aram, to go to his father Isaac in the land of Canaan. Now Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's household gods. And Jacob deceived Laban the Aramean, in that he did not tell him that he intended to flee. So he fled with all that he had. Starting out, he crossed the Euphrates, and he set his face towards the hill country of Gilead. Laban overtook Jacob. On the third day, Laban was told that Jacob had fled. So he took his kinsfolk with him and pursued him for 7 days until he caught up with him in the hill country of Gilead. But God came to Laban in the Aramean in a dream by night, and said to him, "Take heed that you say not a word to Jacob, either good or bad." Okay, so verses 17 to 24, Jacob obviously departs with his family and his wealth. Laban pursues, but then God intervenes by appearing to Laban in a dream and warns him not to speak good or bad to Jacob. Additionally, Laban's sons were incited anger against Jacob because he took his daughters and wealth and whatnot. But it's showing that God has protective presence. If God, and it's important to say, right, God is the one who prevents you from receiving harm. It says here, we read in Genesis chapter 31 verse 7, "Yet your father has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times, but God did not permit him to harm me." So if someone harms you, it's because God is permitting them to harm you. That is to say, God has a protective presence over those whom he has sealed, right? So in this case, God actually intervenes to Laban in a dream and says, "Take heed that you say not a word to Jacob, either good or bad." Okay, let's continue. Verses 25 to 35. Laban overtook Jacob. Now Jacob had pitched his tent in the hill country, and Laban and with his kinsfolk camped in the hill country of Gilead. Laban said to Jacob, "What have you done? You have deceived me and carried away my daughters like captives of the sword. Why did you flee secretly and deceive me and not tell me? I would have sent you away with mirth and songs, with tambourine and lyre. Why did you not permit me to kiss my sons and my daughters farewell? What you have done is foolish. It is in my power to do you harm, but God, the God of your father, spoke to me last night, saying, 'Take heed that you speak to Jacob neither good nor bad.' Even though you had to go because you longed greatly for your father's house, why did you steal my gods?" Jacob answered Laban, "Because I was afraid, for I thought that you would take your daughters from me by force. But anyone with whom you find your gods shall not live. In the presence of our kinsfolk, point out what I have that is yours, and take it." Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen the gods. Okay, so Laban overtakes Jacob, accuses him of theft, but unknown to Laban, Rachel actually stole her father's household gods, the teraphim, and she concealed them. When Laban searches Jacob's tents, Rachel actually hides the images, right? And deceitfully tells the searchers that it cannot be found, or that she cannot find it because, so essentially that's what is happening, okay? And we're going to read this later on as well. Okay, let's continue. So Laban went into Jacob's tent, and into Leah's tent, and into the tent of the two maids, but he did not find them. And he went out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's. Now Rachel had taken the household gods and put them in the camel's saddle and sat on them. Laban felt all about in the tent, but did not find them. And she said to her father, "Let not my lord be angry that I cannot rise before you, for the way of women is upon me." So he searched, but he did not find the household gods. The way of women, that's basically a period. She says that she cannot rise because of her period buying time. And this episode, right, this particular episode is interesting because the narrator and the narrative in this particular instance actually does not condone theft and doesn't actually explain Rachel's heart. But it exposes that even the covenant household that is present here can harbor idols. These gods, they're idols. It's raising the question of idolatry, right? What are Rachel's motives? Why does she feel the need to steal the gods? Does she not trust in God's providence over these temporary gods? And it's very easy for us to say, oh, well, how stupid is she, you know? Why is she holding on to these gods which are perishable and they're meaningless when you have the actual true God of the universe? And then we have idols of our own in ways that you probably wouldn't even imagine. Your phone. You use your phone all the time. You wake up, you check your phone. All of these things. Money. Money's a very common idol. You trust in your money over the one who gave you the money. Okay, let's read verses 36 to 42. Then Jacob became angry and upbraided Laban. Jacob said to Laban, "What is my offense? What is my sin that you have hotly pursued me? Although you have felt about through all my goods, what have you found of all your household goods? Set it here before my kinsfolk and your kinsfolk, so that they may decide between us two. These 20 years I have been with you. Your ewes, your female goats have not miscarried. I have not eaten the rams of your flock. That which was torn by wild beasts I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it myself. Of my hand you required it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. It was like this with me. Day by day the heat consumed me, and the cold by night, and my sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your flock, and you have changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been on my side, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God saw my affliction and the labor of my hands, and rebuked you last night." Wow. Again, Jacob explains himself. He defends his departure, his years of service, Laban changing his wages, Laban's greed, and he insists that the flocks are his by the covenant God gave to him. Jacob's speech, again, is going to appeal to the idea of justice and fairness, and to the God who appeared to him at Bethel. Very important, and it shows that the theme of wages and divine blessing, and the fact that God actually sees your afflictions and troubles. Okay, I'm going to read the final verses in the entire chapter, and then we will be done with Genesis chapter 31. Okay, so Genesis chapter 31, verses 43 to 55. Then Laban answered and said to Jacob, "The daughters are my daughters, the children are my children, the flocks are my flocks, and all that you see is mine. But what can I do today about these daughters of mine, or about their children whom they have borne? Come now, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me." So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. And Jacob said to his kinsfolk, "Gather stones." And they took stones and made a heap, and they ate there by the heap. Laban called it Jagar Sahadutha, but Jacob called it Gilead. Laban said, "This heap is a witness between you and me today." Therefore he called it Gilead. And the pillar Mizpah, for he said, "The Lord watch between you and me, and when we are absent one from the other. If you ill-treat my daughters, or if you take wives in addition to my daughters, though no one else is with us, remember that God is a witness between you and me." Verses 51 onwards. Then Laban said to Jacob, "See this heap, and see the pillar which I have set between you and me. This heap is a witness, and the pillar is a witness, that I will not pass beyond this heap to you, and you will not pass beyond this heap and this pillar to me, for harm. And may the God of Abraham and the God of Nahor judge between us." So Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac, and Jacob offered a sacrifice on the height, and called his kinsfolk to eat bread. and they ate bread, and tarried all night in the hill country. Early in the morning Laban rose up, and kissed his grandchildren, his daughters, and blessed them, and then he departed and returned home. Okay, well, important stuff here. I wanted to just mention one thing which is important. It's really important to obey God's call even when it's risky. When God calls you away from a difficult situation, you have to trust that He will provide a way. Now, the obvious question arises, how do I know what's God's calling? Be in your word, read your Bible, and you'll start to see, because essentially what you're asking is, God is not speaking to me. How am I meant to know what His call is for me? Well, God does speak to you. He speaks through His word, and His word is written in a book called the Bible, and this is exactly what we're reading. So I want you to use what we read in the Bible to try and identify what God is telling you. And it's important to obey God's call when it's risky. When you find yourself in a difficult situation, or when you feel as though you have trouble, you have sin that is lurking in the door, you must trust that God will provide a way. Okay? And it's important also in this particular chapter in the Bible that Rachel hid some idols and took some idols with her, some gods of Laban, and then she went away. Why? Because she was trusting in these idols. She was trusting in the teraphim. So it's also important to recognize what teraphim, what idols are present in your life, which are secret sources of status for you. So that's it for this episode of Biblical Unlocks. This show is designed to help you keep up your habit of reading the Bible, understanding the Bible, and applying it in your daily life. I upload daily, so if you don't want to miss tomorrow's episode, feel free to rate the show and follow. Otherwise, just have a blessed day. And always remember, if you're not in your word, you're in your feelings. Godspeed.